Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks to The Hungry Gamers, back with another mini preview, and today we are talking about Midhalla. Now, this is a game that I demoed close to 2 years ago, maybe 18 months ago on TableTop Simulator, and I don't remember how that happened. I don't remember if the designer just reached out to me, saw me talking about it, or talking about dungeon crawlers in a group, or I saw him talking about it. I have no idea how that happened, but I remember I played it and then I forgot about it. And now was coming up time to launch on Kickstarter, and the designer reached out and I just couldn't do it. Not because I didn't like it or anything like that, but I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have the time. And so I did say that if he wanted to run me through another game, because it's been 2 years or whatever, that I would do some kind of first impressions. So that's what this is. This is a first impressions. I just today ran through a scenario, more of a complete scenario, though we didn't actually finish all the way through because I had stopped to record this because he's launching tomorrow, whatever, of Midhalla. And so I want to just kind of talk a little bit about my early impressions. This is more of my gut instinct, my gut feelings about this game. So, what is Midhalla? It is a Viking themed world. So the lore is not actual Viking lore because the world is different, but it's kind of based off Viking lore. And you're going to get very much of some Viking words in there and Viking feeling in the game, but it's not Vikings in the way that we know Vikings. And it's a long, save the world from evil type game, as most dungeon crawls are, right? But kind of the twist on this is it has a lot of a tower defense vibe to it. What's going to happen is each level you can go into this dungeon, and there is evil in the dungeon that's going to try to get out of the dungeon. And that is your gate, and you're trying to defend your gate from evil. If the gate is destroyed, you lose. You have to keep it inside. And so you're going to be going through and exploring the dungeon, growing the dungeon as you're going through, and finding events, and these events might be kind of chaining events. You start with this card, and then if you do this card, you put another card into the deck or whatever. Or it might just be some treasure, or it might be a trap, or whatever. It'll be something will happen. And you'll be exploring these dungeon tiles and growing the dungeon. And then a couple of times, 2 or 3 times throughout the chapter, you will have an invasion where the bad guys are coming, they are trying to get out. And then you're going to prepare your dungeon. And you're going to set traps in the dungeon. You're going to fortify dungeon tiles so bad guys can't spawn there. And so on and so on and so on, things like that. Then the bad guys will show up in every room around the dungeon that doesn't have a fortification there. Some bad guys are going to show up. Maybe more bad guys are going to show up. And each bad guy operates relatively simply. But for the most part, they're going to move. They have a favored target, be it traps, heroes, or the gate. And they're going to move, they'll have abilities, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to move and try to bust down the gate or kill you. But then, after all the bad guys move, all of the traps are going to activate that you have set. And you can upgrade the traps, have different kinds of traps, whatever. They're going to do what they're going to do. Then the heroes get to act. And at the beginning of the invasion phase, you're going to get to put yourself wherever you want in this dungeon that you have built out. And again, as I said, you're exploring the dungeon as you go in between these rounds, and then whatever you've explored, you're going to have to defend. So you kind of have to measure how much do I want to explore before the invasion happens. And sometimes you have a choice, sometimes you don't, but that's kind of the idea. As I said, after the bad guys go, whatever traps you have set, they will activate. So maybe they've been destroyed, maybe not. Then each hero will get to activate. And in a kind of a scythe-like or theurgy-like fashion, you have these 2 columns of abilities. And you're going to pick one, and row, and each row you're going to pick one, you're going to have to move it every time. And as you're leveling up, which you're going to level up anew every single chapter, you're going to get a different ability that you get to put onto the right side of the column. So you're going to have 3 abilities in the top row. I keep saying column. In the top row, you have 3 abilities that are printed on your player board, 3 abilities that are printed on the bottom row of your player board, and then 2 empty spots. And those are going to change every game based on kind of what you draft. And then if you get to the 3rd level, you have a third more powerful ability. You kind of put whatever you want, and you have 2 uber abilities up top. And you're just doing that. You're going to be using those, moving back and forth. And what the other important thing to know here is everything is deterministic. There are no dice. It simply says you engage, you do 2 damage. Done. That is what you are going to do. Maybe they have armor, maybe they don't, maybe you have pierce, maybe you have retaliate. There's things that you can get, but it is all purely deterministic. Then you're going to go through and either you will be killed or your gate will be destroyed, or you will win. And then you will get some rewards, you will continue exploring the dungeon, and you will build up your defenses and rinse and repeat, and there'll be some kind of boss that comes through. And that's mostly how this game works. It's got, I believe, a 12-chapter overarching story that you're able to play. So, what do I like about this game? First thing I like is, I like this kind of twist on Vikings. I don't usually love Vikings, but that's an interesting little twist on it with kind of some of those lores and ideas, and so that is kind of cool to me. I do kind of like that. I also like the deterministic feeling of it. I love dice. Okay, I love dice, but sometimes I really do enjoy a game that I know exactly what's going to happen. It's more of a puzzle and less luck. And this is one of the rare dungeon crawlers that does that. For me, there is this one, and there is Dungeon Alliance. That's about it. Okay, there's you know what's going to happen in almost every situation, and I do enjoy that. Next thing I'll say is, it is kind of a twist on what we usually expect from a dungeon crawl. And I'm still classifying this as dungeon crawl because you are exploring that dungeon, but then it becomes a tower defense of keep the evil in. I just really find this tower defense mixed in with this dungeon crawl hero leveling system to be very, very satisfying. The same way I find Kingdom Rush right here satisfying, which is not the same type of thing. You're not exploring, it's just a pure tower defense. But the same way I enjoyed that, I enjoy this, though you get a lot more leveling up and control over your characters in this versus something like Kingdom Rush. I also really enjoy the building up of your defenses in between each level, whether you get items, whether you heal, whether you upgrade traps, build new traps. All of that I really, really enjoy. I find that to be very satisfying, very clever, and very fun. And then the last thing I'll say that I enjoy is kind of the story beats and the event cards that you're changing out that I got to see, which is just a little bit. I think are pretty cool. There's some lovely lore in there that you can unlock the lore, but you don't need to know it now, but you can read it later. I think that's very cool. All very, very cool. And the story, from what I read, is pretty well done. So what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first thing is it's not a traditional dungeon crawl. And I go off about traditional dungeon crawls all the time, but this is dungeon exploration, tower defense, and a little bit of RPG all mixed together. So it's not a pure dungeon crawl. So if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find it here. The next thing is you kind of reboot your character each level. You're always going to have the same basic stuff. You're going to carry items over and things like that, but you're going to reboot the fourth skill in each row each time you play, which is a little bit of a reset. Reminds me a little bit of Wander, the Cult of Barnacle Bay, and how it does that. And I love it there, but it might not be what you're looking for because you're not going to have that feeling of getting stronger and stronger and stronger so much. More, you are already really strong. You're going to learn a little bit as you go through. Next thing, I already mentioned, Vikings. You like Vikings? You don't like Vikings. If you like Vikings, it's not actually Vikings. It's this kind of offshoot, parallel universe Vikings. So you like it or you don't. And again, I already mentioned the deterministic part. Again, you're either going to be into that or you're not going to be into that. And then the last thing I'll say is, and this is the most substantive quibble that I have, I don't know how much variety there's going to be throughout the campaign. There will be different monsters, different challenges, and all of that. And I think that the different things that come out through the story and different monsters and all will create the variety that keeps the game interesting. But because it is still always going to be kind of explore, defend, will that become less interesting over time? I don't know. I don't think so, but something just to keep in mind and think about. So there you have it, folks. That is Midhalla. I had good feelings about this game when I demoed it 2 years ago, but I'd forgotten about it. After playing today, I am actually really bummed I did not get a full prototype to do a full review. I still don't have time for it, so I'm glad I didn't, but I'm bummed that I couldn't more so than I was. I am now legitimately excited by this. I'm actually kind of sorry now that I backed Last Spell, because that's doing some of the same things here, but without that exploration. So I'm excited about this, and I think it's one that you should definitely be checking out. So there you have it, folks. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Maybe become a channel member. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.